All right, I think we are live. Hello, everyone. Um, can can anyone tell me if we are audible? Uh, Maghav, am I audible to you? Okay, let me see this. Now you should be audible to other people also. I think so. Yeah. Okay. All right. लोगों को माघव की आवाज आ रही है क्या? माघव यार एक बार अपना छोटा सा एक इंट्रो दे दो.
Hello guys, am I audible?
Is Maghav audible as well? I think so. Yes, he's audible.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Let me, for today's chat, remove the 60-second limit for timeouts for now. कहाँ है यार ये? Customization, slow mode को off कर देते हैं. Yes. ठीक है. Okay. Cool. तो ठीक है. Now we can start with our very much awaited topic, which a lot of people have been asking me, and I planned with Maghav to have a very impromptu live session. 2-3 दिन से सोच रहे थे कि चलते हैं बट वी वर थिंकिंग कि कहीं पे हमने नोटिफाई नहीं किया, कहीं पे हमने अनाउंस नहीं किया अभी तक, तो हाउ मेनी पीपल वुड बी जॉइनिंग इन, बट वी थे थॉट कि नहीं, चलते हैं एक बार डिस्कशन कर लेते हैं, फिर उसके बाद फिर पता नहीं कब अब टाइम मिलेगा. एंड माघव इज करेंटली इन सिंगापुर. है माघव, कैसा वेदर है वहाँ पे? हाउ आर थिंग्स फॉर टेकीज इन टर्म्स ऑफ वेदर, एज इन रियल वेदर एंड द टेक वेदर? कैसा चल रहा है वहाँ पे? हाउ इज द टेक बूम गोइंग ओवर देयर?
Okay, thank you, Kshitiz. I think सिंगापुर में अच्छा ही लगता है आके इन जनरल, और टेक बूम इंडिया जैसा तो कहीं नहीं है. हमारा देश महान है, बट हाँ, आई थिंक स्टार्टअप्स हर जगह अलग अलग फील्ड में आ रहे हैं, तो सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियर्स के लिए काफ़ी अपॉर्चुनिटीज बढ़ रही हैं धीरे धीरे. तो
ओके.
अगर आपको वेब 3 में जाना है, मतलब कुछ भी आपको करना आप चाहते हो, तो उसकी अपॉर्चुनिटीज यहाँ पे हैं. बाकी अगर मैं वेदर की बात करूँ तो काफ़ी ह्यूमिड है,
अच्छा.
तो बाहर निकलना मुश्किल होता है, तो
गॉट
मोस्टली इंडोर्स ही रहना पड़ता है.
इट. राइट. तो काफी आपको लोग कैसे लग रहे हैं वहाँ पे? हाउ आर थिंग्स फॉर इंडियंस ओवर देयर? आर पीपल वेरी फ्रेंडली और वेरी, मतलब, डू दे जेल अप इजीली?
आई थिंक डिपेंड करता है आप किन लोगों से इंटरेक्ट कर रहे हो. सो आई थिंक हर टाइप के लोग होते हैं हर जगह. तो आपको काफ़ी लोग ऐसे भी मिल सकते हैं जो काफ़ी ओपन होंगे आपसे बात करने के लिए. काफ़ी ऐसे भी होंगे जो उतना नहीं ओपन होंगे. बट ओवरऑल आई थिंक क्योंकि डाइवर्स बहुत ज़्यादा है सिंगापुर, आपको काफ़ी अलग अलग कंट्रीज़ के लोग मिलते हैं. तो इन जनरल अगर आप एफर्ट डालोगे तो आपको काफ़ी अच्छा एक फ्रेंड सर्कल आपका बन सकता है, और आप अच्छी मज़े कर सकते हो बेसिकली.
राइट. ओके. तो माघव, एक अपना एक फॉर्मल इंट्रो to what all you have done till now. What's your journey been like? Can you share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Okay, guys. So my name is Maghav Goyal. I am a 2020 graduate from Delhi Technological University. I had taken mathematics and computer science as my field of study. So मेरी जर्नी ऐसी है कि मैंने थर्ड ईयर तक टेक का सोचा भी नहीं था कि मुझे एक टेक जॉब चाहिए.
I
जब
think
सारी
there
कंपनीज
are a
चली.
few people over here who are preferring us to speak in English, तो ये वाला सेशन हम इंग्लिश में रखते
Okay,
हैं.
okay.
Let's try
Sure, sure,
that. Yeah.
sure, sure. Okay, so till third year, I hadn't planned on, getting a tech job. I was very confused on whether I should go for a non-tech job. So, but after, all the companies which come to our campus for internship left, that's when I realized that, I'm missing out on something very great. That is what college gives us is the placement part, right? The companies which are coming to our campuses, I think the process is relatively easier in on-campus scenario. So I thought I'm missing out on all of them. So that is when I started preparing for, tech side. So I started preparing for DSA, projects, core subjects and all. So I was very lucky to get an internship at American Express in my third year. So I went there and did an internship related to machine learning there in the Bangalore office. So then I basically cracked SAP and got a PPO from MX in my fourth year. But I wasn't satisfied with them because SAP has like the inflated CTC, and Amex, I went there and I was clear, that I don't want to pursue a full-time opportunity over there. So that is when I realized that, okay, I'll have to pursue off-campus opportunities because the college had two placement rule. So I could just get two placements and I couldn't sit for any further opportunities. So now I realize how tough off-campus opportunities are. So I realized that in a pool of so many candidates, I have to do something, which differentiates me or something which puts me on the same level or maybe on a higher level than the other candidates. So in March 2020, I got the offer from Shopee Singapore. So, but at that point only, COVID, like the pandemic stuck. So I was not able to, go there. So then again, I realized I'll have to get back to the off-campus, job hunting again. So then I started proxy prep. So I thought, if I mentor students, if I give them the tips that have helped me to crack so many offers, I would be able to, be in a better state to clear interviews myself, right? So that is when we started organizing webinars, mock interviews, and stuff. So I think I, developed a good sense of understanding of how interviews work in general, like how you need to crack them. So after, a couple of months, I cracked two other offers. So one was from Compass and one was from a startup called Infernia. So I had these three offers, but I decided to join the startup because everyone says that, it's best to join a startup in the
Mhm.
starting stage of your career. So I think, as mentioned by everyone, the steep learning curve is what attracted me, and it was just a 15-member team, and everyone was like, "Great." I mean, fuck, sorry, great. So, so basically, I decided to join them, and but after working for 8-9 months, I realized that going to Singapore is still on my mind. And I think because in a startup it's very unstable, as in you're working on one feature for a week and maybe in the next week that feature is scraped and you're working on another one.
Ah,
So at some point I thought I would want to work for a good product based company. So that is when I decided to interview at product based companies. So I got the offer from Flipkart, Amazon, and TikTok Singapore.
oh,
So
okay, great.
so then I decided ki, I mean, Amazon is maybe not the best option because of a lot of factors, which we can talk in some other video. But
Right.
yeah,
नहीं नहीं मतलब I think it's pretty known to a lot of people that Amazon is infamous for a lot of places. It's not known to have a very good work-life balance. It is very challenging, and to some people like me, I would say I prefer to have something like that. At least I'm looking for a lot of work to grow up. But yes, definitely there are
yeah,
things.
agreed, agreed. So Flipkart, on the other hand, looked like I was getting a great team there, and I had heard a lot about Flipkart's culture. So I wanted to experience that. But again, going to Singapore was again on my mind. Uh, like I had got the offer from TikTok, but again due to a COVID wave, I couldn't go. So this was the second time I was basically rejected that I couldn't go to Singapore. So after working for almost a year, basically the process with Shopee started again. They were hiring and like for a different team now. So I had one round wherein system design, DSA, and like basically some parts of everything was tested. And
Right.
then I got the offer. And then finally I moved to Singapore.
Okay, awesome. So, tell me this, that you have been like aiming for Singapore for quite some time, and you have achieved that. Like, why Singapore as in particular? Most of the people are thinking about going to the US or maybe someplace
Hmm.
Germany or Canada, but Singapore does not come up very like commonly for Indians at least. What actually like made you think about Singapore? Why are you so interested in Singapore as a now? Yeah.
Sure, sure. So first of all, while working in India, the tax slab is 30%. So it is like a big pain, when the amount in tax is taken away.
Yeah.
But here in Singapore, the tax is very, very low. So, I mean, that was a very major point of me, considering to move here because if I talk in terms of savings, So when the tax is low, you are able to earn a very large amount of money. Secondly, Singapore is a very diverse country. You get to meet a lot of people from, different countries. So I
Uh,
thought I want to develop, like I want to understand the culture of different nationalities, and I want to be empathetic towards all. I mean, if let's say after 5 6 years I go into a management role, then it would really help because I would have that exposure, right? And third is, I mean, it's very close to India. So
oh, okay.
let's say, I mean, if so, let's say my cousin brother got married last month, so I didn't have to think twice before, booking my tickets to attend the wedding.
Right.
While if I were in Europe or US, it would have been quite different.
Hmm.
So yeah, majorly these three factors, I would say.
Okay, awesome. So let's now start with the conversation for today. And other people who are writing up in the chat, I'm trying to note down the important questions that I can see. And some questions might be missed up. We'll have a small AMA session at the end. And if you have questions, you can ask me or Maghav anything related to tech interviews. How do you crack good companies? And if you have other personal queries related to these topics only, we can take in the later part of this video, right? So, Maghav, we have the important topic to be discussed is um, how do you crack so many companies, because you have personally you got the offer from Amazon, you got it from Flipkart, you got it from so many multiple companies, right? And there is like a common thing that I hear from a lot of freshers and people who are yet to graduate are is that getting a job is very difficult, right? So basically, what they're saying is that firstly, they do not get selected for any interview, and then they're not able to clear any interview because of a lot of reasons. What do you
Hmm.
want to say to these people? Do you think that this is true for some people, or this is just a misconception?
Okay, so I'll give you some background so that maybe you think that I am also a very normal guy. I mean, I don't know a lot of things. So I'm from mathematics and computing, which is like a tier two branch in DTU. We have computer science, software engineering, IT, on the top of us. And then I have not done comparative coding like on code forces. I just do a lot of lead code. I haven't done any open source, right?
Right,
So there's nothing exceptional about me, right? But my basic understanding is that you don't need to do this. If you basically understand how an interview works, you can hack it. If you understand, how introduction works, how you need to frame your introduction, how you need to talk about your projects, how the interviewer basically thinks about the interview, because it is a two-way game, right? You are taking an interview, so the interviewer also comes with some expectations. So
right.
let's say if I'm seeing a resume, right? I can't know everything. I also have to think from my knowledge bank what all I know and what kind of questions I can ask.
Correct.
So I think you can prepare everything, beforehand, so that it can actually amplify your chances of clearing any tech interview. So my point is that anyone can clear any interview if you understand how the interview game works, and I'll help you in this.
Right. So awesome, awesome. I think we can get into a lot more detail in interviews. I also have a few things to share with people, but I want to hear your perspective about most of them. If we try to broadly divide an interview into three parts, I think that would be your introduction, your projects and experience, if you have any experience, and that can be summed up with your projects as well. And then there is the actual skill proving part, which is called as the DSA round, or like whatever technical skills you have, that kind of round, coding round. Basically, let's talk about techies. Majorly, it will be a DSA or a coding round, or maybe they'll be asking you a different question or things. So let's focus upon coding round as it is now. So the first part would be the introduction part, and most people do not prepare for it. They think that we'll go there, we'll speak our name, we'll speak our branch name, and that's it, and we can move forward. I have seen so many people who do not understand what's to be spoken about their introduction. Do you think there is any emphasis that we should play when we are trying to prepare for the introduction part, or it is going to be casual, whatever you say is just fine? What's your take on this?
Got it. Before answering this question, I just want to ask this question: is my video lagging, or is are you able to understand the conversation clearly?
Your I think your call is having small cracks somewhere or the other, but it's just fine, and I don't think we can do much about it. So
Okay,
it's just fine.
okay,
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 if you're sitting somewhere where Wi-Fi is a little bit less reachable, if you can move, that's fine. But otherwise, it's just fine. It's not going to impact a lot. So just take care.
okay, okay. Sure, sure, sure. Okay, so I think introduction plays a big role. I mean, it is highly underrated. Okay, let me give you some examples. So, uh, let's say I go in an interview. I don't have any preparation done, right? And I just go there and say that, my name is Maghav. I am from this college, this branch, and I like to play cricket. I like to solve puzzles, and I like to do DSA in my free time. That's it. Now you have given no hint to the interviewer that what your skills are, right? What project you want to talk about. You haven't helped the interviewer uh, in anything with with this kind of introduction. Now let me give you another type of introduction. So I can say that my name is Maghav. I graduated from this college, this branch. In my first year, I picked up data analytics. Then I gradually moved to machine learning. But in the third year, I realized that having good fundamental knowledge of DSA and core subjects is very important. So I dive deep into it, and I basically made a mentor-mentee recommender system for my college so that I could find the right mentor for myself, because it's difficult to talk to 900 college seniors and find which is the right mentor for you. Now, if you notice in this kind of introduction, first you have listed down all your skills that you have worked on during your college life, or I mean, if you are an experienced professional, list down all the skills that you have. Secondly, I have given the hint that this is the project that I want to talk about, the mentor-mentee recommender system. And because it is at the last, the interviewer will definitely pick up this. I mean, just this is a very generic fact. If I talk to Kshitiz about something, right, and I end it with an open note, so he would want to dive deep into it. He would want to ask me more questions on it, right? Because that is also like my strongest project, because I have mentioned it in my introduction. So I think these two things are very underrated. I mean, these things should be included. What do you think about it, Kshitij? Hello, am I audible? Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, now it should fix up things. There was some process running in the background. I changed it. Yeah, I wasn't audible. Now it should be fine, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that's fine.
Can the stream? Yes, now it's fine. Yes, yeah. So we can move forward. Yes. Now.
Got it. So, like just to follow up, did you all understand how there was a difference in both the introductions, and how walking the interviewer about your skill set and then ending something which the interviewer should pick on? How that, I mean, the difference basically between both the introductions. Can someone just acknowledge so that we can move forward?
Yes, yes. I think a lot of people are acknowledging. Yep.
Okay, okay. So I think this introduction has like helped me to like talk about the thing that I want, right? So I'm just helping the interviewer to take the interview. This is like my small hack, which I would say. So
Makes sense. I think this is something that I would also want to other people to at least put an emphasis upon. What are your strong skill sets that you want to at least set the course for the next 1 hour or half an hour, whatever time you have? It would always require a little bit of a guidance from your side, because an interview can get into endless directions, right? If a question is given to you and it is an open-ended question, depending upon where you want to take it and how you handle the answers, the entire interview course will be decided upon, right? So the first part in which you can manage the direction to a certain extent would be your introduction about what you are good at, what are the things that you are aiming for, what are the things that you have done till now, and you can assume that okay, this is what the questions from now on would be like. In these constraints only the questions will be fitting in, so it's very important that you set those directions very clearly, right? Okay, so now let's say that the intro part is something that we have worked upon, and for me my intro was usually about me, a little bit about
Mm.
what I am doing right now, and other than
Yeah.
that, at least in the college time, it was about two internships. Like I was a little bit I was proud about the fact that I did two internships where other people had done only one internship, right? So I did two internships, so I emphasized on that, like it was something super great. But somewhere or the other I had some content about it, and I showed that okay, in the first internship I did these projects, in the second internship I did that project, and I am interested in doing these things. And it gave me around 1 to 2 minutes of time to speak about myself, which the interviewer was talking about, right? Just as the technical domains of my interests, right? So yeah, good start with things. Okay, let's say that we have anyway aced our introduction and we had prepared for it, and that part would be common for all interviews, right? And that's where the main course of the interview starts. And now we are adding going to the part 2 of the interview, which is about your experience and projects, right? So I want to know, how do you present your projects is one thing, but what do you think is like how many, this question is, I've answered this question so many times, I've been asked this question so many times. What's your take on the fact that how many projects are required? Is 10 or 20 projects enough? Do I make 100 projects? How many projects do I actually have to make, and what will it take for my projects to be these things? What are the best projects? All these questions come so many times to us. What's your take on this, Maghav?
So guys, I'll answer this with interviews perspective, right? So you just have 10 to 15 minutes max to talk about projects, right? Let's say you do 10 projects, right? And you mention, let's say 4 or 5 projects in the project section. And then even on the side, you mention that I have done more projects on these many fields. But am I able to, talk about all of them? Am I able to talk about, more than 2 projects? No, I don't have time for that, right? So I suggest place max 3 projects if you want to showcase different skill set, right? If you want to show that you have a backend experience, front end experience, ML experience, or any skills for that matter. Because in the interview, you want to showcase your strengths. You don't want to put stuff that you're not very sure about, or you worked on it, let's say a couple of years back. Because if a question comes up on that field, you will stumble, and that is not a very good thing, right? So 3 projects according to me is a good number. uh, and just focus on your strengths. I would say that.
Right. I think from my side also, I prefer that three projects is good. One of them has to be a really good project, and two of them can be
Yeah.
side projects. Ki, haan, this is working
Hmm.
good, this is good, but this is really good, right? Good, really good and good. The difference between them is that you spend enormous amount of time making the major project that you want to showcase, which is going to be your yeah, what's it's called? It's going to be the flag bearer of all the credibility that you want to build, right? That okay, I know these
Hmm.
concepts also, and any project can be good project, right? A lot of people ask me that what are some of the unique ideas that you would want us to give and that would implement the best things. I would say that even the simplest of the projects can be made in the like in a very beautiful manner. Like if
Yeah.
somebody has made an e-commerce website, Flipkart clone or something, Amazon clone or something, there is one version that is running on your local host and there is another version that is making billions in the market, right? So imagine thousands of people working on the front end and like tens of thousands of people working on the back end for the same project. What I'm trying to emphasize was upon the amount of complexity that you've added to the code, right? I made a small project once. I was like in the like I was just trying to make some projects for my resume once, and I added all these layers of security into it, a little bit about checking when the person is signing up, signing in, trying to add up to some microservice architecture, a little bit of parallel programming, that okay, there are two threads running and we are trying to get it from this place, and trying to add a little bit of more features, a little bit of more complexities would take you far, right? And that is something that the interviewer is looking for, that okay, now you have learned about microservice architecture, okay, you now know about threads also, you are running these things in parallel. What about your code sanity? Are you checking things out? Are you testing things out? Have you made a testing source file also? So all these things are very important and should be added up, right? We'll take some part of it when but how do you actually show your projects into resume, because that is also very important. A lot of people do not even know how do you present your projects in your resume. So we'll take that part also, but basically the point is that your firstly, making good projects is important. The second point is that documenting them well on GitHub, making sure they are well presented in your resume is very important. But whenever you're making projects, you should make sure that they are relevant to the job that you are applying for. That's very important. You cannot make a project which is front end heavy and you're applying for a back end job, or you're making a project in data science and you're applying for, let's say, front end job, right? So try to have a relevant resume in what company you're applying for to get the best results out. And when you're, suppose I made an e-commerce website backend, and just to make a few things, I implemented a little bit of front end also, but implementing the backend was my major concern. But in front end, because I was looking through somebody's YouTube playlist, I also implemented Elasticsearch into it, right? It would be a terrible mistake if you don't know anything about Elasticsearch and you've added that feature into it, because this is the second step in which you are adding the domains in which the interviewer will be asking you a lot of questions, right? They will be going deep into it, that okay, what will happen if we go into this thing, what will happen if you if somebody writes this thing, and Elasticsearch, how does it work, how do you do that? So stay away from fancy words if you cannot back it up, right? Expect each and every keyword that you speak of to be one question from an interviewer, that okay, how does this work, if this happens, what is going to happen, right? In Amazon there is one round that we have, it's a non it's casual name is called as grilling round, in which we try to grill the person on the topics that he has picked up, right? We call the expert from the other teams that okay, this person knows these topics, let's call this out and let's ask questions in detail. How do you make these things up? You have said that you have made this, right? Then we try to verify that did you go into details and did you go into all depths, what you say that you know, do you really know it or not? So definitely back your claims when you are trying to speak about, let's say that you made a project in ML, right? And if you do not know about ML, it would be a very big mistake from your side, right? Do not go for fancy names if you don't know anything about it. And that's one point that I wanted to ask, but quite beautifully summed up by Maghav into that part, right? So let's move forward and go into the third part of this conversation, which is like, once your projects are discussed, all these questions are going super well because you have prepared, you already knew that you where you want to take the conversation, in what direction do you want to talk about. Now comes the major chunk in which you prove your credibility, right? Once you have proven it by saying that this is all that I've done and all those things, now you really have to get into the skill part. Do you really have the skill, what you're talking about, what you have said that you have implemented? And we are going to test it out, right? This is the competitive coding or coding round, basically, in which they would give you a problem and you have to solve it. Let's say that it's a DSA round, data structures round. They'll give you a problem, you have to solve it out. How does one person prepare to code better in interviews, and what they should be thinking about? What's the whole process that you follow up?
Okay. So before answering this question, I would just like to mention that all of these concepts, I have basically covered it on my YouTube channel, detailed videos on this. So if we are missing something right now, you can go and watch the videos on my channel, detailed analysis of all the topics. Okay, so I think when I used to go for a DSA round, I used to divide my time into two sections, basically. That what all things I need to do before writing the code, and what all things I need to focus on when I start writing the code. Because I think if you don't have the idea clear in your mind and you start coding, you will end up having multiple iterations. I mean, you won't be able to write the correct code or, in the most efficient manner. So you should be very clear. If you're very clear, coding won't take a lot of time. Right? So the first thing is that uh, I try to understand the problem statement very well. That I ask clarifying questions. I ask, what kind of data is this? What is the maximum value? Like, what can be the different type of values that can come in? How many nodes, different type of connections, and so on. Then once I know that, okay, I have understood the problem statement, I try to evaluate, okay, what can happen in different situations, right? If I do this, what will happen? If I do this, what will happen? So after this process, let's say if I have spent 7 8 minutes on the entire process, I am very clear with what the problem is and what all cases can it have. And also it has shown to the interviewer that, I am thinking in various directions. Now, arriving to the ultimate solution is not always the thing that, the interviewer is testing you on, but how you are thinking and how you are able to streamline your thinking into the final approach is very important, right? So once I know that, the problem is sorted, now I come up with solutions. Okay, this can be solved maybe by this, maybe by stack, maybe by queue, maybe by graph, maybe by trees. And now I have shown to the interviewer that, I am thinking of everything. I don't know what can be, the best solution. So I'm thinking of everything. And now I will start rejecting some solutions. Maybe stack doesn't work. Maybe graph works, or I mean, maybe tree works, or maybe array is the best solution and using binary search, right? And through this, I have shown that, I'm thinking I can think on various things in various directions. Now imagine maybe a problem which the interviewer thought would be solved by a particular manner. You give some other solution which the interviewer has never thought of. So half of the battle is won, guys, because you have already showed to the interviewer that you are thinking at that particular timestamp, basically, right? Now when this is also done, thinking out loud and expressing yourself is also very important. That you see that, I'm following a structured way of giving out information, which is, you might think that I have good communication skills, so this is what you also need to cultivate, that whatever you are thinking, you need to convey that to the interviewer. You might be a genius in your mind, but if you're not able to present it, then that's of no use, right? So these are the steps which I followed for before interview, like before coding, sorry. Now, when I start coding, now I know what is the data structure to be used or what is the algorithm to be used, what needs to be done, how it needs to be done. Now, modularity and separation of concern. Like this has done wonders. I've taken a lot of mock interviews, and people have told me after their interview that this is like a very helpful technique. So let's say it's a DP problem, right? And let's say it's you have to find the LCS of two strings, right? Now let's say I write three functions in the main function. Let's say find LCS. I write only three functions. First is pre-computation, and I pass the matrix and do something. Second is I traverse the matrix, and final is some final computation. So my main function only contains three function, right? No other code in the main function. Now every function has its own, functionality, and I'm very clear that this function, this code needs to come here. This function denotes this, and what I need to write. So I'm very clear in my mind what I need to write. So there's no scope of confusion. It is very, very readable for the interviewer. Interviewer would be impressed because you have that clarity and you are able to express it in a problem. Then meaningful variable names, I think this is like everyone talks about it, and it is very useful again for the clarity of code and for showing your clarity of thought as well. Now just think how interviewer would want to judge you. Let's say if I hire you, right? You would work in my team. Let's say I would be your mentor. So I would want some person who writes code well. I mean, he's a smart person, I'm sure, but writing quality code is also very important, right? Because my code base should be very clean. It should be very understandable, right? So always try to think any part of the interview process through the perspective of the interviewer. So I think this is very useful. And just one last thing, whenever you are writing code, right, speak about what you are writing, what that code means. Because let's say you are not doing it, you write the entire code, interviewer has 10 other things to do, he's busy in his phone, she's busy doing something else, the attention is gone, right? And after you are done, you explain your code. So why are you wasting your time? When you are writing code, explain, because when you're talking, right, you are more confident of what you're writing, because when you're explaining something, you know that what you're writing.
Right.
So I think this has this is basically the hacks that I follow.
Correct, correct. I think this is one of the very important tips that I also give, that you have to make it a two-way conversation. It don't get it into a very dry monologue from your side also, because sometimes what I've seen is that what people do is they start explaining things, and interviewer also sometimes do not interrupt them when they're explaining, but it's not making zero sense to the interviewer, right? So you're not even checking, like I have I've developed a habit of, after some time, like after every like 1 or 2 minutes, when I've started to explain something and I've done a little bit of work into the explanation, I would say, are we on the same page? Are you understanding it till now or something? Do you have any questions till now? Can we move forward if there is something, right? And the second most important part is that when you're trying to formulate is approach approach, what happens is that some people think that if we start speaking at that point and we are trying to formulate an approach and we are not sure if this approach will work out or not, they are afraid that the interviewer would judge them that they are giving the wrong approach. So the easiest way of doing it is having a very good communication with the interviewer, that okay, now I'm just thinking out loud, this is not my final approach, I'm just giving you all the options that are coming into my mind. This would really help the interviewer also into to gauge into your mind thinking capability, what you are doing, and all these things. You can start with things. I've done it multiple times. I'll start with one approach and then I go, oh okay, because of that use case this approach is not usable, let me think about something else. I literally speak this when I'm trying to explain all of this thing. Okay, can I use a hash map? Okay, hash map will not work in itself, I might need a hash map and a doubly linked list. It's getting a little bit complicated over there, let me keep this idea over and think about something, if something simpler can be done just using doubly linked list something. But because of memory, I think I might use a hash map. But things like this go on into this conversation again and again. And the second very important advice that I would want people to give is that assume that your interviewer is not knowing anything, right? This is something that has been proven very efficient for me, is that you cannot assume that because the interviewer is asking you question, he or she already knows the answer, so I can skip a few steps and that also works. That is the whole job for that interviewer, right? That you will explain each and every step. You cannot say that okay, this is how it is going to work, two pointer, binary search, hash map, done, right? I have seen people do these things also, right? Because they think that okay, if I give them the markers, they already know that the solution is going to have these things only, they'll assume that I know everything. This is not how things work out. You need to explain them. Even if they ask you to explain binary search, you will even have to go into that much data. Okay, I'll explain you how the binary search works, right? Whatever it takes for the interviewer, you need to understand that, and or assume them that they might just be not actually looking out for the logic, but they might be looking out for how good you explain things to the interviewer, right? Because once you are doing coding, when you've not gotten any job experience something, you do not know this, but after your first job you understand that coding is not a solo sport, it's a team sport, and your communication skills are also something that are going to impact the entire coding life cycle for the whole feature to be plugged out. How good can you communicate with other people? How can you explain things out well? Can you work with them or not? Can you make sure that things are done on time? All these things are also required. So from time to time, you are not knowing what you are being judged upon, right? There are a lot of things that Amazon judges you upon, and on different rounds the emphasis on different skills is there, right? On some round the emphasis was on something else, and you might be thinking you coded really not well, you made a few mistakes here and there, but the emphasis was not upon the coding part on that round. Maybe the emphasis was upon how good you were thinking, or how good you can do something else or something. So all these things play into like the whole picture up, and you need to put emphasis, the focus part on different aspects of the game, right? Making sure that you explain things well, you making sure that the communication is done time to time, and making sure that you are doing all these things timely, right? Maghav, do you have any timestamps that you try to follow if you are giving an interview? How much time do you take in what all steps of the coding round? Let's say it's of 45 minutes usually. How much time would you give to like the real coding part and the explanation part? How would you do it?
Uh, Depending on the interview, maybe there can be say a single question, or there can be two questions. So if you see that it's a simple question, it's a very simple question, then you know that there will be another follow up or a hard question as well. So typically, what I do is, if I know it's a very easy question, I try to wrap it up quickly. I mean, maybe I won't go into all the steps that I have explained right now for the easier problem, and I'll try to give out, let's say, multiple solution, and then just converse quickly on whether you want me to code it, or how does it work. But for the harder problem, I'll focus more on the stage which I explained before actually writing the code. I'll focus more on that. So let's say if I have, let's say, 25 minutes left, so I'll put maybe 15 minutes on that, because that is more crucial, because I like clarity is more important. Once my clarity is there, coding is just writing down something which you have understood,
Right.
right? And if you're sure that you'll write in smaller functions which have their own meaning, so then it again wouldn't take much time. So I would like highly suggest to spend more time in the ideating stage, when you are thinking about the problem, test cases, giving out solutions, which one would work, which one wouldn't work, right? So try to spend more time on that. That will actually save more time in the coding part.
Right. We have one question that is like um, something that I at least get 10 times asked in every day. So how much do you think does the college degree matter? Like in the beginning, in after like 2 3 years, or what's your take on this?
Hmm. I think college definitely matters, according to me. If you talk in terms of opportunities, I think slightly there would be a prejudice. I mean, there would be something at the back of the mind that, the college tag,
Do you
I
think
think.
it is still relevant for you, somebody who has 3 4 years of experience?
3 4 years of experience, no. Then college tag just fade away.
Okay. Okay. Right.
And even in the start, I think, if so, my point is that if you are skilled and you're not from a good college, it doesn't matter. But if you are average and you are from a good college, then maybe things can sail for you. But if you have the skills, you don't have to worry. Like, that is simple.
Right.
So skills over degree any day.
Correct, correct. Someone has asked, front end DSA is important or medium level DSA is fine. I think from my experience in the industry, I can tell you that um, DSA as such is just your tool of problem solving. So somewhere or the other, you will be asked DSA in most technical rounds. But as the norm is going these days, they are more getting into low level design and problem solving in different other forms also these days. The emphasis is slightly decreasing, a little bit decreasing, but still is very relevant, at least for the backend part. For front end, the emphasis has gone and reduced quite a lot. So yes, a little less emphasis, medium level, if you're talking about what, like, it depends upon what your medium level stands for. But yes, a little less emphasis than if you would want to prepare for a backend role would be given to DSA if you're preparing it for the front end role itself, right? We have a question on, let's say that somebody is preparing for placements or something. Do you have like what's the what's like your take on DSA sheets or roadmaps that are given online? And do you think that you would prefer one of the what are your resources of what would you follow as a person who has just joined college, or somebody who has like 10 months or 1 year to prepare for the best companies, if you know all that right now, if you knew when you were starting with and in the third year or the fourth year, what would you be following things right now?
So I think if you have limited amount of time, then guidance or structured content would be very helpful. So if the sheet is covering, varied level of questions from every topic, and after doing the sheet, you are able to understand the concept and able to, let's say, apply it to some interview, archive questions, then I think a sheet is also very helpful. But you should feel confident about doing that sheet. Like that is the main thing. If your concepts are not getting cleared with the small set of questions, then I think it's not helpful. uh, so in limited time, I would suggest to have a guidance. Like that has worked for me.
Correct, correct. Can we directly apply to companies in Singapore? And if we apply outside directly, then interviews are on site or online? How, like, nice question. What's your take on this?
Okay, so firstly, I have made two videos: how to apply for a job in Singapore and how SD interviews in Singapore are different from SD interviews in India. So you can go check them out. But so I would say that there are multiple ways of application for a job, and it's from my experience for Singapore firms, I think for me, applying to the career website was equally good as getting a referral and then applying. So the best way I would say is try to be active on LinkedIn. Try to connect with people from those organizations so that you know when the company is hiring, and then you can go to the career website and apply, because you can't randomly every day go to some random company's career website and see whether they're hiring now or not. So having the right connections is very important, I think. Follow some pages which are posting job openings and then apply. And as Kshitiz also mentioned, customize your resume according to the role that you're applying for, because that will amplify your chances. So having a front end project for a machine learning role may not be that relevant, right? So try to customize it and connect with the right people. That's what I would say.
Right. And in your journey, you mentioned that after some time you started to have a resolve that you want to now start applying for product-based companies. Do you see a difference in the practice or difference in the way you have to prepare for product-based companies than service-based companies? Do you see a difference in culture and the interviews? Like, is there some difference that you find into that?
I'm not very sure about service-based companies, but I can compare startups versus maybe product-based
Hmm.
companies. So I think for startups, it's more on the skill set. So like if you are applying for a front-end role, they would like to focus, like they'll have more rounds on the front-end skills, right? Because in a startup, your role would be front end if they are giving you like if they're hiring you as a front end engineer, like you would be a specialist in that field, right? But when you join a product based company, I think, like from my perspective, they are basically looking for a person who has the IQ or who has the understanding of handling various stuff. I mean, maybe you could be put on some project, then you have, the skill set and the confidence in your abilities, that you can also have work on different projects, right? So if you are applying for a startup, focus more on the skills, like backend skills, front end skill, basically for the role that you're applying for. And here projects become very relevant, your core knowledge becomes relevant, right? Maybe your open source contributions, whether you have deployed the code, and stuff like that becomes very important. But for a product based company, I think DSA still is very very important, because it helps to judge whether your problem solving or your IQ is up to the mark of what a company wants.
Right. Okay. One person has asked if having blogs and an active tech social activity How does it help and how much is it necessary? I would say it's really necessary, and the pandemic actually accelerated the online culture very drastically these days. Everything that you are has to be notified to the other person as something online, right? These days, if you want to tell someone who you are, I would say that okay, give me that person's LinkedIn ID. I would want to check what this person is and what he's doing and all those things. Other than that, what's your social activity has to do with your job opportunities? Basically, having a really good, well-made connections online is very important, right? So, focusing upon that would definitely give you an edge. If you start today and let's say that you're planning to prepare for next 3 4 months or 6 months, let's say, every day you can set up your target that okay, I want to connect with as many people, I want to grow my network. So there are two ways. One is that you start sending requests to different people. That is one thing. Okay, done. Then second thing is that how would people start to know me is that you stay consistent in telling the world what kind of tech things you are doing. That would help the technical recruiters to find your profile and to see what you're going through and what you're doing. And there are a lot of headhunters that are actually this is their job to find these people out and give them the opportunities, because if you crack the interview, then they'll get some bonus out of it or something like that. So getting your own social activity at a high level is sorted is very important, right? LinkedIn is super important. If you can get active a little bit on Twitter, that would also give you a little bit of results. But definitely I would say that LinkedIn, for at least the fresher part, is very important, right? Do companies ask why I made projects using a certain tech stack? What would be my answer? um, um, what should be my answer is that only is that the only tech stack I know. Okay, no. So basically, you can say that's just fine. As a fresher, they know that you will know a particular tech stack only. Like they're not expecting you to know all technologies. Also, to experienced people, that is something true, because there's no end to tech stacks and different technologies that you can follow up, right? There's no end to anything in that direction. But what you are needing to like justify is, let's say that you are using a non-relational database, then they will definitely ask you what's the difference between non-relational and relational database, and do you think that there would be any difference in the performance, or maybe if you had used this kind of an architecture instead of that kind of architecture, would that be a difference? But these questions and these things become much more relevant for people who have a little bit of experience. But for freshers, they don't get into these details. They are actually going to low level design, that okay, if this use case is something that you want to serve, do you think your architecture is good or not? The kind of function that you have implemented, do you think that once this feature is tried to be implemented, then how would you try to solve it out in something like this? So they'll go into these details more than asking you about questions about tech stack. So you should know a little bit about things. Like obviously you should be knowing but the difference between relational and non-relational database. This is something that you anyway have to cover a little bit in your preparation. But you do not have to go into too much detail right now as a fresher, and people who are majorly coming, as we did a vote also, most of you guys are students only who are watching this video. So for you guys particularly, I would say that yeah, you don't have to get into that kind of details, right? As a student, when we send, okay, this is some question, Maghav, you can take up. As a student, when we send connection request to people working in these companies, then what should we write in the connection request? So basically, how do you cold connect with different people? Have you ever done it from your side? Do you think it works well? And like how do you actually approach people out? Do you just randomly send people a request and see how many of them anyway land up, or just you have a strategy for it? What's your take on this?
I think it's very similar to how you write your introduction, right? How you tell your introduction to an interviewer. So similarly, try to introduce yourself, what are your skill set are, and that you're applying for this, you want to apply for this job, or you're interested in career opportunities, in this company. Then also like give a brief about your handles, like your coding handles, like your GitHub profile, right? So that the person has a complete understanding of where you stand. If you are a first year student and trying to connect with a person for jobs, so then maybe the person won't give you that attention. So I think try to have targeted like people, I mean, just target people that you want to connect with these people and give them a reason to connect with you, right? Why would someone want to connect with you? It should be relevant for them as well. So try to find that, again, thinking from the other person's perspective. So try to personalize. I mean, a lot of random cold uh, like emailing or random connection
Right.
requests, I don't think helps a lot.
Okay. Correct. So somebody is trying to ask, when you said customize my resume for the positions I'm applying for, how do I customize my resume with 3 to 4 projects? Can you explain that part again?
Okay, so what I mean by that is, let's say if you have diverse skill sets, right? You have worked on a lot of fields, let's say front end, back end, ML. So then, if you're going for a, I mean, different role altogether, let's say you're going for a front end role first. So then maybe you can remove some project, right? But then if you're going for a backend role, try to push the backend project on the top, right? Because that becomes your strength now. Because the interviewer would want to talk about that only, right? So try to first customize the order. Then, depending on, I mean, what is more relevant to the backend or what is more relevant to, let's say, the company, right? And according to the JD, you will also, like job description, you will also get an idea of what type of skills they are looking for. So try to customize based on that. If you have only 3 projects, then you don't have to worry a lot. You just have to change the ordering. So
Right.
things become simple.
Correct, correct. So this is basically when you're trying to apply for, let's say that you know a little bit of front end and back end, so you thought that the best way I can find jobs is in full stack also I'll apply for front end also, let's say. So for front end, you should put emphasis upon the projects that you have in like front end heavy things, right? Back end because has a very less scope, and even if you have made really good projects in back end, try to keep them at low, because otherwise it shows that you have an intention of going into the back end side also, right? So putting the intention also is very important, right? If you have a resume in which you have really good projects in all the different fields, right? Data science to machine learning to front end to back end, but it is not showing a one clear intention that this person is interested to go into this field and this person wants to really work into this field, that actually counts as a bad point against you, right? Make sure that your resume speaks for yourself, that yes, this is the candidate that I'm looking for, right? The person who's going to screen your resume does not have a lot of time, right? They have maximum around 1 minute to 1.5 minutes to look at your resume, and in that part they're just going to skim through all the things that they can see, and they'll be focusing on things that are at the top of things, like wherever the headings are. They're not going to go into too much detail at that point of time. So you need to focus upon things that would look good for that particular profile. That's what we are talking about. But let's say that you're only having 3 to 4 projects and you do not have a lot of to customize from, so then you're applying for one single job, and then this is a little bit less relevant for you in that sense, right? How should you follow a proper coding structure? Because in different companies like private limited and MNCs, product based companies, help me to get like from where I can get the optimum coding knowledge. I don't understand the question, Shubham. If you can paraphrase it, then I think we can answer this one. But um, that's all these things. I think if you start implementing, I have also added one of the videos I really liked about from Maghav's channel. Is it's about the how do you make really good resumes, and how do you find the good templates that would take you to the best of the companies. Following a few guidelines is always important, so definitely check that video out as well. And I think we are good for today. I am Maghav. Do you have anything, any other advices to give before we conclude?
No, I think we have had a good share of knowledge sharing session today. Thank you for giving me the opportunity
Always,
to
bro. Yeah.
share
Thank you
this
for
in your
joining in
community.
and definitely helping our audience as well. I would definitely advise everyone to check out Maghav's channel as well. He has really good content and he's planning to add up even more in the coming future as well. Right? Thank you, Maghav, for joining us today. Hopefully, we'll have you over here again sometime. Right?
Thank you, Kshitiz.
Thank
Thanks
you
a lot.
everyone for watching this stream live, and your questions hopefully are answered. If not, then you can find Maghav and me through LinkedIn also, and you can connect with us definitely over there. Right. Thank you. Bye bye.